The beloved sitcom Beulah brought warmth and laughter into American homes from 1950 to 1953, making television history as the first show to star an African-American actress. Yet behind the cheerful facade of the Henderson family kitchen, tragedy would follow the cast members for decades. From groundbreaking Oscar winners to pioneering television performers, the actors who brought this historic show to life have all now taken their final bow, leaving behind a legacy both triumphant and heartbreaking. Ethel Waters. Ethel Waters made television history when she became the first African-American actress to star in her own network television series with Beulah in 1950. Her portrayal of the wise and capable housekeeper who could solve any problem the Henderson family couldn't handle themselves broke new ground in American entertainment, even though Waters herself would come to regret taking the role. Born in Chester, Pennsylvania in 1896, Waters grew up in extreme poverty and began performing professionally as a teenager. She started her career singing blues in Baltimore clubs, becoming the first woman to perform W.C. Handy's St. Louis Blues on stage. Her distinctive voice and emotional depth quickly made her a star in Harlem's Cotton Club during the 1920s, where she introduced songs like Stormy Weather that would become jazz standards. Waters successfully transitioned from music to acting, earning critical acclaim on Broadway in productions like As Thousands Cheer and The Member of the Wedding. She became the second African-American actress nominated for an Academy Award for her powerful performance in the 1949 film Pinky, playing a wise and dignified grandmother figure that would become her signature type of role. Despite her success with Beulah, Waters left the television series after 2 seasons in 1951, publicly stating that she felt the portrayal of black characters was degrading. This decision reflected her growing discomfort with the limited and stereotypical roles available to African-American performers, even as she had helped break barriers in the industry. Waters' later years were marked by health struggles, including diabetes, heart disease, and kidney problems. She found solace in her renewed Christian faith, frequently appearing with evangelist Billy Graham at his crusades throughout the 1960s and 1970s. She died on September 1, 1977, at age 80 from complications including uterine cancer and kidney failure. Waters left behind a remarkable legacy as a performer who opened doors for future generations while never compromising her dignity, even when the roles she was offered fell short of her talents and worth. Hattie McDaniel. Hattie McDaniel brought her Oscar-winning talent to television when she took over the role of Beulah in 1951. But her time on the groundbreaking series would be heartbreakingly brief. McDaniel managed to film only 6 episodes before breast cancer forced her to stop working, and she died just as the show was reaching the height of its popularity, never seeing her final television performance reach audiences. Born in Wichita, Kansas in 1893 to parents who had been enslaved, McDaniel was the youngest of 13 children and began performing professionally as a teenager in minstrel shows with her family. She worked her way up through vaudeville and radio, becoming one of the first African-American women to sing on American radio in the 1920s, and eventually making her way to Hollywood during the Great Depression. McDaniel appeared in more than 300 films during her career, though she received screen credit for only about 80 of them. Her most famous role came in 1939 when she played Mammy in Gone with the Wind, a performance that made her the first African-American to win an Academy Award. Even this historic moment was marred by segregation, as McDaniel and her escort had to sit at a segregated table away from her white co-stars at the ceremony. Throughout her career, McDaniel faced criticism from some in the African-American community who felt her roles perpetuated harmful stereotypes, but she famously defended her choices by saying she would rather play a maid and make $700 a week than be a maid and make $7. She used her success to help other black performers and was involved in civil rights efforts, including a lawsuit against housing discrimination in Los Angeles. McDaniel died on October 26, 1952, at age 57 from breast cancer. Her final wish was to be buried in Hollywood Cemetery alongside other movie stars, but the cemetery refused because it was whites only at the time. She was instead buried at Angeles Rosedale Cemetery, and it wasn't until 1999 that Hollywood Cemetery erected a memorial in her honor. McDaniel's legacy as a trailblazer who opened doors despite facing constant discrimination remains an inspiration to performers who followed in her footsteps. Louise Beavers. Louise Beavers became the third and final actress to play Beulah on television, taking over the role in 1952 after Hattie McDaniel's illness forced her to leave the show. Beavers carried the series through its remaining seasons until it ended in 1953, bringing her own gentle warmth to the character while dealing with the same challenges that had troubled her predecessors about playing stereotypical roles that didn't reflect the full humanity of African American women. Born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1900, Beavers moved to California as a child when her mother became ill and needed the warmer climate. She attended Pasadena High School, where she excelled in singing and participated in church choirs, with her mother working as a voice teacher who helped develop Louise's musical talents. After graduation, she worked as a personal maid to silent film star Leatrice Joy, which gave her an inside view of the movie industry and eventually led to her own acting opportunities. Beavers began her film career in the mid-1920s, appearing in dozens of movies throughout the 1930s and 1940s, though she was often uncredited for her work. Her breakthrough role came in 1934 with Imitation of Life, where she played Delilah, a black housekeeper whose pancake recipe makes her white employer wealthy, while her own light-skinned daughter rejects her to pass for white. This performance was groundbreaking because it gave a black woman's story equal emotional weight to the white character's storylines, something almost unheard of in Hollywood at the time. Unlike some of her contemporaries, Beavers was not naturally heavy, but she had to deliberately gain and maintain weight to fit the Hollywood expectations for the mammy roles that were the primary options available to black actresses. This constant weight management took a toll on her health over the years, contributing to the diabetes and heart problems that would eventually claim her life. Beavers died on October 26, 1962, from a heart attack at Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in Los Angeles. In a tragic coincidence, she died exactly 10 years to the day after Hattie McDaniel, as if fate had marked that date as particularly cruel for the women who had brought Beulah to life on television. Despite the limitations placed on her by Hollywood's narrow view of black performers, Beavers maintained her dignity and used her platform to advocate for better treatment of African American actors, leaving behind a legacy of quiet strength and perseverance. Butterfly McQueen. Butterfly McQueen brought her distinctive high-pitched voice and nervous energy to the role of Oriole on Beulah, playing the scatter-brained maid who worked for the family next door to the Hendersons. Her character provided comic relief with her confused and flighty personality, but McQueen herself was far more intelligent and determined than the roles Hollywood typically offered her, something that would cause her to walk away from acting for years at a time throughout her career. Born Thelma McQueen in Tampa, Florida, in 1911, she moved to Augusta, Georgia as a child to live with her aunt after her parents separated. She later joined her mother in New York, where she began studying dance and acting with a Harlem youth theater group in the 1930s. She earned her famous nickname Butterfly after performing in the Butterfly Ballet in a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And she legally changed her name because she disliked being called Thelma. McQueen's most famous role came in 1939 when she played Prissy, the young slave in Gone with the Wind, who delivered the memorable line, "I don't know nothing about birthin' babies." While this role made her instantly recognizable to audiences worldwide, McQueen later said she hated the part and felt it portrayed African Americans in a demeaning way. She appeared in several other films during the 1940s, including Cabin in the Sky and Mildred Pierce. but grew increasingly frustrated with being typecast as simple-minded servants. Fed up with Hollywood's limited roles for black actresses, McQueen left acting in 1947 and worked various jobs including taxi dispatcher, factory worker, and restaurant employee. She made a remarkable comeback in the 1970s, returning to college at age 64 to earn a bachelor's degree in political science from City College of New York. In 1980, she won a Daytime Emmy Award for her performance in the children's television special 7 Wishes of a Rich Kid, proving her talent extended far beyond the stereotypical roles of her early career. McQueen died tragically on December 22, 1995, when her clothes caught fire while she was trying to light a kerosene heater in her small cottage near Augusta, Georgia. She suffered burns over 70% of her body and died at the hospital 9 hours later. She was 84 years old and had been living quietly, with neighbors knowing her simply as Thelma, because she preferred to keep her Hollywood past private. McQueen's life represents both the limitations placed on talented black performers and the strength it took to forge a different path when those limitations became unbearable. Dooley Wilson. Dooley Wilson brought his warm presence and musical talents to Beulah when he played Bill Jackson, the handyman boyfriend who was constantly proposing marriage to Beulah, but always finding reasons to postpone the wedding. Wilson took over the role during the show's second season in 1951, and his character provided both comic relief and romantic subplot to the series, though by this time, Wilson was already a Hollywood legend for his unforgettable performance in one of cinema's greatest films. Born Arthur Wilson in Tyler, Texas in 1886, he began performing professionally at age 7 after his father died, singing in churches and tent shows to help support his family. By age 12, he was earning $18 a week performing in minstrel shows, and he got his nickname Dooley while working at Chicago's Pekin Theater, where he performed an Irish song called Mr. Dooley in whiteface makeup. During the 1920s, he led his own jazz band called the Red Devils, touring nightclubs throughout Europe, including Paris and London. Wilson returned to the United States during the Great Depression and shifted his focus from music to acting, appearing in Federal Theater Project productions and eventually making it to Broadway in the musical Cabin in the Sky in 1940. His film career began in the early 1940s, but it was his role as Sam the piano player in 1942's Casablanca that made him immortal in cinema history. Playing opposite Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, Wilson performed As Time Goes By in what became one of the most famous musical moments in film history. Though, ironically, he was actually a drummer and singer who couldn't play piano, so his performance was dubbed by an off-screen pianist. After Casablanca, Wilson continued working in films and returned to Broadway, but his health began declining in 1951 while he was performing in a New York production of Harvey. He became seriously ill during the run and had to leave the play, though he continued working on Beulah as his strength allowed. Wilson died at his Los Angeles home on May 30, 1953, from natural causes at age 67. He was survived by his wife Estelle, who died in 1971, and his death marked the end of a remarkable career that spanned vaudeville, jazz, Broadway, and Hollywood's golden age. Wilson's legacy lives on every time someone hears As Time Goes By, but his work on Beulah showed his versatility as a performer who could bring dignity and charm to any role, no matter how small. Ernest Whitman. Ernest Whitman became the third and final actor to play Bill Jackson on Beulah, taking over the role of the handyman boyfriend during the show's last season in 1952. By the time Whitman joined the cast, the series was winding down, but his presence brought the dignity and professionalism that had made him a respected character actor in Hollywood for nearly 2 decades, even as he was often limited to playing servants and supporting roles due to the racial barriers of the time. Born in Fort Smith, Arkansas in 1893, Whitman was educated at the famous Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. where he received training that would serve him well throughout his varied career. He was ordained as a minister in 1907 at the young age of 14, and his early participation in Chautauqua educational programs led him toward a career in entertainment and vaudeville, where he discovered his talents for singing, acting, and engaging audiences with his commanding presence. Whitman's film career began in the 1930s and spanned over 20 years, during which he appeared in some of Hollywood's most memorable productions. He had roles in epic films like Gone with the Wind in 1939, where he played one of the enslaved characters, and The Green Pastures in 1936, an all-black religious fantasy film that was groundbreaking for its time. He also appeared in Jesse James, The Lost Weekend, Stormy Weather, and Cabin in the Sky, consistently bringing depth and humanity to roles that were often written as one-dimensional. Throughout his career, Whitman worked steadily in both films and radio, becoming a familiar voice to audiences who listened to various radio programs during the golden age of broadcasting. His theater background and ministerial training gave him excellent vocal skills and stage presence that translated well to both mediums, and he was known among his colleagues as a reliable and professional performer who could elevate any material he was given. Whitman died on August 5, 1954, at his home in Hollywood from a liver ailment at age 61, just 1 year after Beulah ended its run. His death came during a period when opportunities for African-American actors were already limited, and the entertainment industry was about to enter an era where black performers would virtually disappear from television screens for more than a decade. Whitman's career represents the professionalism and perseverance of black actors who worked within a system that rarely gave them the recognition they deserved, yet continued to bring excellence to every performance. Ruby Dandridge. Ruby Dandridge stepped into the role of Oriole during Beulah's final season in 1952, replacing Butterfly McQueen as the scatterbrained maid who worked next door to the Henderson family. Her casting brought an experienced performer to the show's last episodes, and while audiences may not have realized it at the time, they were watching the mother of a future Hollywood legend, as Ruby's daughter Dorothy would go on to become the first African-American woman nominated for a Best Actress Academy Award. Born Ruby Jean Butler in Wichita, Kansas in 1900, she grew up in a family where her father worked as both a janitor and an entertainer, performing for both black and white audiences in an era when such crossover appeal was rare. She learned singing, dancing, and acrobatics from her father, skills that would serve her throughout her long career in entertainment. Her early marriage to Cyril Dandridge in 1919 was troubled, and she left him permanently while pregnant with her second daughter, Dorothy, raising her 2 girls as a single mother during a time when such independence was almost unheard of for black women. Ruby's career spanned multiple decades and mediums, beginning with piano recordings in the 1920s, when she became one of the first African-American women to record piano rolls for the Vocal Style Company in Cincinnati. She performed in vaudeville and minstrel shows, appeared in early films including an uncredited role as a native dancer in the original King Kong in 1933, and became a regular on radio programs including Amos and Andy, where she played multiple characters, including Sadie Blake and Harriet Crawford. Her work extended beyond performing as she helped manage her daughters' careers, creating a song and dance act called The Wonder Children that featured Dorothy and her older sister Vivian. Ruby's business sense and determination helped launch Dorothy's career, though their relationship was complicated by Ruby's demanding nature and the pressures of show business on the entire family. Ruby Dandridge died on October 17, 1987, from a heart attack at a nursing home in Los Angeles at age 87. She had lived longer than almost all of her Beulah co-stars, witnessing the civil rights movement, her daughter's rise to stardom, and the tragic early death of Dorothy in 1965 from a drug overdose at age 42. She was buried next to Dorothy at Forest Lawn Memorial Cemetery in Glendale, California, where mother and daughter rest together after lives spent breaking barriers in an industry that often failed to appreciate their contributions until long after they were gone. Amanda Randolph. Amanda Randolph appeared in multiple episodes of Beulah throughout its run, bringing her considerable experience and talent to various supporting roles on the groundbreaking series. While she wasn't part of the main cast, her presence on the show connected Beulah to television history in a special way, as Randolph had already made her own mark as a pioneer who broke barriers for African American women on television several years before Beulah even existed. Born in Louisville, Kentucky in 1896, Amanda was the daughter of a Methodist minister and a teacher, and she grew up in a family that valued education and music. She began earning money as a teenager by playing piano and organ in Cleveland, Ohio. And around 1919, she moved to Cincinnati, where she made history by recording piano rolls for the Vocal Style Company, becoming one of the only known black female pianists to be recorded on piano rolls during that era. Randolph's career spanned vaudeville, radio, films, and television, but her most significant achievement came in 1948, when she starred in The Laytons, a short-lived program on the Dumont Television Network. This made her the first African-American performer to star in a regularly scheduled network television show, breaking ground 2 years before Beulah premiered and proving that black performers could carry their own programs, even if the industry wasn't quite ready to fully embrace this reality. She became well known to radio audiences through her work on Amos and Andy, where she played Sapphire's mother, and later became a regular on The Danny Thomas Show, where she played the family maid Louise for over a decade. Her work with her sister Lillian, also an accomplished actress, helped establish the Randolph family as a show business dynasty, though both sisters often found themselves limited to playing domestic workers despite their considerable talents and intelligence. Amanda Randolph died on August 24, 1967, from a stroke in Duarte, California, at age 70. She had lived to see some progress in opportunities for African American performers, including the success of shows like I Spy and the upcoming premiere of Julia, which would star Diahann Carroll as the first black woman to headline a network series since the days of Beulah. Randolph's legacy as a television pioneer often gets overshadowed by later, more famous breakthroughs, but her willingness to take risks and accept challenging roles helped prove that black women could be successful stars on television when given the chance.